Ready?
Ready?
Welcome back, episode. Wait on, because that's fucking refocusing. Yep. Welcome back, episode 3 with Ches. Today we'll talk about a bit of training through injury, not injuring, re-injuring yourself, and sort of those topics. Roll the intro.
Yeah, they call me a savage. How I'm putting in work. I hustle and grind, I put in the time, get what I deserve. Savage.
You might need to kick this one off. We'll go through our injury history.
Injury history.
Yep, bottom up.
Bottom up.
Toe to head first. You go first.
What was the first one? No, that would have been my toe. I did my navicular in 2009. 2009 pre-season into 2010. That's when I did my first knee, my right ACL. And then at the end of, actually at the start of the next year, did my left ACL. And at the end of that year, I did my left ACL again. Then I went up to Redcliffe, did a shoulder, did a forearm, and yeah, that's pretty much it, bro. So,
Fuck.
six or seven main injuries that sort of led to me being off the field for a long period of time.
Yep, and sort of total weeks you're sort of off the field. How long you reckon?
Total weeks?
Yeah.
Oh man.
How many games do you probably miss from?
Bro, like I've actually thought about that. Over the space of 3 years, I think I played only 2 games in the space of 3 years. So 2010 to the end of 2012 was my first game.
Yep.
So that's what you're missing, 20-something games per season. So that would have been like 60 games or something.
Yep.
Yeah, so spent plenty of time off field, bro. Did plenty of rehab training. What about yourself?
Mine was a lot of ankles.
Yep.
Did an Achilles, just a small tear, but that was pretty bad towards the end of the career too. And a lot of hammies. Mine was sort of soft tissue injuries more than any major reconstructions. No major knee injuries or anything, but just like little calf tears, hammies, which are just as annoying. Probably nothing as major as you, but got to, you know what I mean, go through those different processes of being out, doing physio and going all through that rehab process. So tips when you get injured, what's the sort of, you know, what are people doing wrong? What are they doing right, do you think, at the moment?
I think there's a lot of people out there that get injured and they actually stop doing anything. And I think that's the biggest issue, right? It's just, for example, with something like knees, the like I said last episode, the last thing you want to do is just actually stop moving. I said you need to find out what you can and can't do, and then spend a lot of time, you know, just really getting into the things that you can do.
Yep.
You know, I think just because your ankles are buggered doesn't mean you can't do something with your upper body, or your upper limbs, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's the best one that I probably got through my footy career is
Yeah.
when your upper's injured, train the lower. If your lower's upper sort of thing, don't have that excuse that if you get injured, then there's nothing else for you to do. You got to find that stuff to do, and I think that's where a lot of young kids go wrong. You know, they don't improve while you're injured. I think that's the biggest one. You know, there's a lot of things you can work on when you're injured and come back stronger. Also, the other thing is sort of getting yourself in a better position when you come back. I think not just enough to be able to play as well. I think the kids coming through and even the adults and all that as well that we deal with is they get the body just enough to get back to being able to play, you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're in good condition either.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Because when I was playing out at Penrith, I remember I was only out for a couple of weeks just with a thumb injury, but because I was obviously out, I spent a lot. That was like the first time I ever spent doing heaps and heaps and heaps of cardio. So I was super fit. And then when I came back onto the field, I think it was around semis time for Windsor Wolves. I was down to 104, 105 kilos. So I was probably one of the fittest I've ever been in my footy career. I played really good footy, man. I thought I was going to be like a little bit busted on the field. I thought I was going to be tired. Because I've done all that groundwork for the last 5 to 6 weeks, I was just super fit, man. And the only thing that I was missing was just game fitness. And I got that really fast. So that's a good point.
I think the other difference is when you're in the NRL system and you get injured, you get physio every day.
You get physio every day. Like honestly, bro, like you're getting paid. So it would be hard for someone that's not getting paid to be like, oh, you know, what do I need to do? But that's the difference. You need to be able to find, you know, or even speak to guys like ourselves who have that experience, so that you know when you eventually do get paid, if you are a full-time footy player, a full-time athlete, you've got all the nooks and crannies covered. All right, if you can do it when you're not getting paid, imagine what you could do when you're getting paid as well. So that's a pretty good one for those young guys.
What about the toll it takes on your mentality getting injured? You know what I mean? You get injured. You probably didn't know what it was like when you first done your knee, but the second and third you would have, you know what I mean? What do you go through? What feelings do you go through during those times?
Like
you know what I mean?
Even thinking about it, man, like you can't help, you know, because you think the world's at your feet, man, and then it just gets crumbled, right? Even that first time I did it, I was still like, I didn't know anything about knees. I had no experience. And I did it, you know, on my last trial before the NRL season started. So I pretty much missed the whole year. And I got it, you know, I spent a lot of time just sort of thinking, you know, how would I feel being back, blah, 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 blah. And then the next season, it happens again, but you're a bit more prepared for it mentally.
Yep.
And like I said to you last time, I did have my kids during those times anyway, so I was fairly busy anyway. But that first year, 2010, that was a tough one, man, because I felt like that could have been a really good season for myself, and that played a bit of a toll on my mental game. You know, I didn't really go too well, and you do struggle. But I'd say you've always got to, you know, if I'm a young guy who's just got injured or who's scared of getting injured, or whatever, you got to surround yourself with people that are good for you and for your mentality. And that just may mean, you know, hitting up one of your peers, looking at guys that you look up to, and just having that conversation as well.
But it's super easy just to go on the piss
it is, bro.
Not every night, but like, you know what I mean? You're not playing in the weekend, so you can drink on the Friday.
Yeah.
You can drink after the game, and it's easy to fall into those bad habits.
It's a trap.
You know, that's not going to help your recovery because extra swelling and, you know what I mean? Because the other thing is you usually get pumped in rehab training.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You're doing a lot of training, a lot of fitness style, so maybe you think you can sort of get away with those things. You're not playing, but I think that puts in some bad habits into...
Yeah.
I think, that was some of the bad habits I used to get into with the rehab boys. It was like, we're not playing, so we can, go out. Yeah, go out before the game. But I think that mentality of when people get injured, sometimes it's like their life's been taken, because if you put so much effort, because footy is your life as you're coming through, you know what I mean? Depends what situation you're in within your hierarchy of your team. Maybe you're just on the fringe, maybe you're in there and there's some more competition biting from the bottom, but also from the top. You want to push through and all those things, and you want to impress the coach. And when that gets taken away, I think a lot of players, just that it takes a big toll on their like mentality, and you know what I mean? People suffer from depression and all those sort of things, but it's sort of just zooming out from the picture of that footy bubble as well. I think a lot of players think, okay, footy's my life, you know what I mean? And that just gets ripped. But life's about so much more things than that. But sometimes you don't realise that when you're that young as well.
That's what, and it's super important to sort of find out what you can do outside of footy during those times. You know, I even though I didn't study, but I was still super interested in plenty of other things, and I was always helping the coaches do video work and all that sort of stuff on players as well.
Yeah, I think this is a good way to go. Actually, I didn't plan on this, but
but like you know, spending time. One, you should figure out what you want to do outside of footy, all right? Because footy's obviously not yours for however long you're injured for.
Yep.
And then two, you know, find yourself being a scholar. You know, go and actually study the game, or go and spend some time with coaches or other players and actually learn the game properly. I think that's what really helped me during that season. When I came back the year after, I wasn't, you know, physically fit because I got injured again. But in terms of my mental game, it was like I really learnt a lot about footy during that 2010 season. That's important too.
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest regrets during my footy, because having so much time when you're training full-time or even part-time through under-20s, and just not taking advantage of all that time that you could have been upskilling yourself in different areas. Like, I didn't do any PT courses back then, no training, no learning about that. I was just stuck in sort of that bad habit of just cruising through life, just saying, I'll make NRL, I'll make all the money through that way. That obviously didn't happen, but I think that's the biggest thing. You're wasting your time when you're at that young age. There's a lot of different things you could take advantage of, relationships you could have made. Like we were at the Roosters, like.
The network's crazy down there.
Yeah, you don't realise till you're out of that network and that sort of environment, like, you know what I mean?
What would you have done, bro? Like, what would you have studied? What's something that you would have thrown yourself into?
I think I would have done like physio.
Okay.
I would have enjoyed doing physio or sports science.
Yep.
It would have helped me today, or I could have done a course, anything like gym-wise and that, or I could have went in and helped the trainers, learnt from, like, I had heaps of good trainers like Ronnie Palmer, and like create relationships that way. Mm-hmm. Maybe I could, if I had a good relationship with Ronnie or any other trainers coming through, I could bring them. Maybe that's a job opportunity today, or I can go in and help, But I don't. Being so young, I was pretty quiet and shy back then. It would be hard for me, but I wish I could have done that like back then.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good point.
Education-wise, networks and all that, I think that's like finding your passion as well outside of footy. And being injured's a real good time to start, especially this day and age with all the opportunities through the internet, online stuff. Like, bro, the world's your oyster
there's so many
today.
things. I think like you got to find out what that is, and you can't just find that by just sitting on your TV at home watching Netflix, Yellowstone all night. You got to actually go and do something, and it might just take one or two conversations, but if you can find something that's going to fill up your time, and I guarantee you when you get back to playing the sport, whatever sport you're playing, you're going to play better anyway, because like you've got the right amount of focus, and I think that's where I was lacking. I did spend some time looking at things away from footy, but I was never as focused as I should have been, and I think that focus is what led down the road of being injured for another 2 years. So.
And when you're young, you can try a lot of things. You don't have to have it all figured out.
Do anything you want.
Nah, you can do like, you might want to be a gym trainer. You might want to do some online business or marketing or sales, or, you know what I mean? You might want to do being a farmer or a butcher. Like, you can try those things. You don't have to have it all figured out when you're 20. I think that's a bit of a, you know what I mean?
I think that comes with the culture of footy too, but bro, like I think because you're so young in that sport, and like you ask what the average age is, and it's like 22 to 25.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them need to have the answer by such a young age. And then when we leave footy, it's just like, oh, I've still got another 40, 50 years to live. What am I going to do now? So I think just not being in so much of a rush and finding out, what you're made of. I think like Troy was just saying, just slowly, taking steps towards things that you might enjoy in life away from footy. So
I think we probably have a lot of good friends that went off the rails as well.
Yeah, man.
As well, and like they chose a different path because they were still chasing that footy, and sometimes it, like that rush of footy and that easiness of maybe some of the money that, like, it's hard if you're going from a 6-figure contract to earn that in the real world through a job, or even trying to build a business that can make 6 figures. You know what I mean? You're going into and I think it's probably high-profile footy players go like into the drug dealing, like, you know what I mean? That's the quick, fast way, you know what I mean? They go down that bad route, and we sort of, like, would rather push people into doing like things that they love because they got so much time to work on it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to have it all figured out.
Yeah, bro.
But yeah. What else? Training through injury sort of thing. Like, what sort of things? How do you what would your week look like on a full knee Reco sort of thing that you were doing?
At the start of it, man, I spent heaps of time just in like recovery mode. So, all right, I'll try to give you the breakdown. So leading into getting let's say my second one, when I had a little bit more of an idea, leading into getting surgery, I did heaps of work on my knee before that, all right, because obviously I tore my ACL, and then I had maybe 2 or 3 weeks leading into getting surgery. And the difference was with the first one, it was sort of like just bang smack, go and get surgery, go get it done. But because I had a sort of some sort of a roadmap after it, I was like, well, what can we change this time? And it was leading into the surgery. So we spent a little bit of time. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Lachlan Penfold or one of our trainers, Damo, or even Trav. We spent a little bit of time strengthening my knee. So I was still in the gym doing stuff, had them TheraBands, all that sort of stuff, and just waking up the VMOs, making sure that swelling was getting down by jumping on the game ready. icing and what's the word for it when you're game readies. What do they do? They compress. That's the word I'm looking for. So icing compression, flushing that swelling out, and then getting into surgery with my knee as much as back to clean as possible, or back to normal as possible, considering I've got no ACL. Then you get surgery. Then after surgery, there's just heaps of rehab. All right, so I'm always seeing the physios, getting my leg flushed out, getting it massaged, getting it lubricated, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going taking the steps towards obviously running again. All right, and so those first couple of weeks, I would spend a lot of time in the gym on the TheraBands again, just getting my balance back, just working on strengthening the muscles.
What does the knee feel like after surgery? Does it
bro?
I haven't been through
because I got the patella graft on my first knee, mate. That was the most painful feeling I've ever felt. Like for the first 6 to 10 weeks, I was heavily on painkillers just because I couldn't stand the pain. All right. How do I describe it? It was like someone having a knife and just stabbing you straight in the knee, bro, constantly.
The whole day, sort of thing.
The whole day.
Yeah.
And you wake up and it's just like, fuck, man. But I realized the reason why I woke up and had one of those machines that bend and straighten your knee, because you got to keep it moving. I didn't keep it moving at all. Right, they have the brace on there and they lock you into a certain angle. So I'm constantly walking around in that. But I know now that if I was in that same position, bro, I just rip the brace off and just get the thing moving, even though they're probably telling you not to. I'm not saying go and do that, kids. I'm not saying to go and do that. What I'm saying is now I've got the experience to be able to sort of address that a little bit better from my end.
Yeah.
But they were doing everything that they know that's possible. So the weeks after, spent step by step getting back into somewhat of a walking stage. The knee's still feeling pretty cranky. I'd say it's maybe in terms of pain, 100 being painful. It's sitting around halfway, 55, 60%. And it starts leaving, the pain starts going as soon as you can get the range of the knee back. All right, so the first couple of weeks or months is just trying to get the range back and then trying to walk properly. All right, because I still do it now, and you've watched me walk. You watch me walk. I've got the mad duck walk, but I hobble as well. All right, just trying to clean that up as much as possible. And then once you can start, walking and bending, that's when you can start hitting it with some weight.
Yep.
And that's when the real work starts happening. So then the phases after that. So that would be the first 2 to 3 months, just getting back into that walking stage, so say 12 weeks. And then that time after, leading into that 6-month period, which is when you should be able to run again or to play again. It's just, month by month working on getting you back to 100% fitness.
What does running feel like when you first start jogging?
Yeah,
it's foreign, or?
Yeah, foreign as it feels real clunky. You do feel clunky. You feel like at any time your knee can collapse, and that's what happened to me. I remember I was on the field with Rowan when I did my third knee, and we were just going through some movement patterns. And that was the fastest I'd ever got back from any knee. That was my last surgery. No, before my last surgery, sorry. It's all mixed up with all these injuries. And I was just going through some movement patterns, man. I felt pretty good, felt pretty light in the feet. I remember catching the ball, and then I went to go and step off at my left foot, and then it just felt like it clunked. And that clunky feelings are what I'm talking about. And as soon as it clunked, it just felt like it went again. And then I went and got a scan done. I was 50% ACL torn, or the graft had torn, so I had to go and get surgery again. So that's the feeling you got to battle with constantly, that clunky feeling. And the only way that you'll know that it's going to hold or not is when you play footy. All right, those scares are going to happen all the time. You stepping off a foot or you getting into a tackle and you're like, oh, it feels uncomfortable. But you just got to keep pounding on that. Not smashing yourself. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you got to keep testing that water. And I think the road back to playing for me was pretty cool because the first time I played, which was 2012 at the end of the season, the Roosters got in contact with Newtown Jets and we had this cool little plan. So my first game back, I only played 10 minutes. Right, mind you, the New South Wales Cup is still playing, and that's the sort of, treatment you can get as a professional footy player, right? It's just we'll get you back in this week, we'll put you in for 10 minutes of the last half when everyone's sort of half fatigued,
Yep.
this, that and the other. and then we'll pull you off and see how you feel. And then if we need to, we'll go back on for time period. And that's how I built. So I built like just, bit of K's underneath the legs, all that sort of stuff. And that really worked for me for my confidence. And I think that's important for people to know too. Whenever you do have an injury, you can't go all balls to the wall, whatever you call it. There needs to be some sort of strategy leading into going back and trying to get back into your full game fitness, and that was mine, and it worked for me. It was really good.
Yeah, what's the mental sort of game through that whole rehab process? Is it hard to just
it's hard.
You're out for 6 months,
right?
So
It's hard to stay
pretty much over.
It's hard to stay on, man. Like it's really hard to stay mentally focused because like I said last time, you're going in during times no one else is there.
Yep.
You're doing so much stuff by yourself, so you got to be like prepared for the constant mental battle. There were times when I was like, "Fuck, man, there's no point in me being here. What am I doing?" But the only thing is, I never talked to anyone. I think that was my problem. There's always someone in your team that's gone through the same shit that you've gone through. There's always someone, one of your peers or one of your friends that has some sort of experience, and I never did that, bro. I never talked to anyone, and that's really important for people to do too. But back
in the day though, no one talks.
No one talks, bro.
But like now, it's a bit more.
Now it's a little bit more open.
Yeah, open to talk about all that sort of stuff.
So, I suggest that if you're injured and if you know someone that's been injured in your position, then go and ask questions. What can I do outside of my game that's going to keep me focused? I'm finding this one will always happen. I'm finding myself not wanting to be there. All right, that's a really good question because most people don't feel like being there because you're alone all the fucking time. But it's those questions that'll help you unlock what you can be doing. I suggest going and being a scholar of the game, whatever sport you're playing. Spend time watching video. Oh, this is what I did, man. My 2012, maybe 2011. One of those seasons, I picked like 3 players. There was Sonny. Jeez, was it Sammy? 3 second rollers and just studied the game, everything that they did. And I love just watching them and being like, fuck, how can I imitate that? And like, I'm not saying going and fucking making your game exactly like someone else's. It's just spending time focusing not just on what you're doing right then, but actually focusing on something that's going to keep your mind focused on the game.
So like upping your footy IQ,
upping
sort of
IQ,
thing?
bro. Yeah, that's what the words I'm looking for. Upping your IQ.
Right. Did you do video on them, or did you just watch a few games and just look at what they're doing?
They got the data sheet, right?
Yeah.
And you go, Sonny, fucking Alilo Atiti, or at Anthony Watmough. I think pretty sure it was Watmough. And then you just like click on whatever part of the game that you want to focus on for that day. I want to focus on their runs out of their own half, or what sort of lines they're hitting, or their defense, their movement patterns, watching them on and off the ball, all that sort of stuff. And that's what I really like zoned into. And, fucking 1 or 2 hours of that, you're just like, your brain's ticking over. Like, you're still thinking about footy, you're just not worried about yourself so much. You know what I mean? So that really helped my game in doing that. And then when I came back and played footy, I found myself sort of like projecting what I was going to do. So it was another form of confidence for me, man, because when I was on the field and I'm thinking about some of the video that I was going over, I'm like, I can actually do this right now. My body was starting to like catch up to what my mind was already processing. And what my mind was processing was something that I was actually watching. So it's like there's a massive link. And then when I actually got back to full fitness, I found myself just being able to do the things that I was watching so much and spending so much time on with in terms of footy IQ. So
what takeaway did you get from watching Sonny?
Oh man, just on and off the ball. Like he just does so much work. He did so much work. I remember that 2013 before I left Roosters. I used to watch him because everyone looks up to him.
Yeah,
I did massively. When I was coming through the grades, it's just like, fuck, I want to be like that guy. And then you go and watch him play, and then you go and watch him train. You understand why he's like from that caliber. The guy's always doing the small things that no one else wants to fucking do.
Yep.
And he's the last time I said goodbye before I went out to Penrith, bro, he's doing like these Bosu ball I'll always remember, bro. These Bosu ball hop on and hop offs, and he's so dialed into it and so focused. And I'm just there to say goodbye. And he's like, "Oh, you know, are you off? See you later." And then he's straight back into it. And I'm like, that there is what I should have done. You know, if I had my time again, it's that focus. It's doing all the small things, the stuff that we talk about now. But yeah, even on the game, bro, like the stuff that he does for a big fella off the ball, his movements and that, he's always making everyone around him feel safe. Fuck, it was mad.
Because everyone should like understand that you can affect the game without the ball too.
Without
you
the
can
ball,
have that
bro.
influence on the game.
Man.
Like it's massive.
It's super mad to watch too, bro, because like that presence there is what anyone can emulate. It's just a matter of, you know, the appliance. And in order for you to learn how to apply something like that, you actually have to fucking go and watch it or experience it.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can experience is if you study it. Now, if you're injured, like we're speaking right now, if you're an injured dude, go and do that sort of stuff, man. Spend some time doing that stuff because it's just going to make you better and everyone else around you.
What was had a little bit to do with Sonny, but what about Sam Burgess? Because I know you were with him at Rabbitohs. What type of like guy or like
Just the same, bro.
similar? Like
Yeah, real similar. Just like man, you're like real good dudes, but just badass motherfuckers on the training field, bro.
Yeah.
Like you can tell, they're super skillful. They're always doing the small things. Well spoken about themselves. Their presence they have is probably the biggest thing. Like you can walk into a room with those cunts and you'd be like, fuck, you know
Leadership?
about it. Leadership, bro. You know what I mean? He knows how to hold. They both know how to hold a room. You know what I mean? And that's what I noticed about Sammy too. And like, they're all push around guys. Like you can go into a pub or you can go to a gym and hang out with them, and they're good dudes. But the stuff they do around training, around the guys, that just brings everyone together. It just makes you realise how good they are. And another point, when training with Sammy, or even when Sonny came over to the Roosters, like you could not help but realise everyone was elevating. Like as soon as Sonny walked into the training paddock, everyone was just like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Present.
The same thing with Sammy. Sammy was away, so I didn't really get to know him until he came back after fucking England was done. Something was done. He came back real late, and as soon as he came in, it was just like everyone just started training better. Everyone's ripping in better. I was like, what the fuck's going on? It's just like, well, that's why.
Yeah, that leadership without them having to bark orders at you.
Bro.
Like, yeah,
and they're fucking,
special.
you know, they're big motherfuckers too, bro. Like, they're not small.
Leading
No.
by example and
Leading
all those,
in
those
all
things.
facets, bro.
Good. So we'll wrap this up. Maybe a young kids coming through, even probably just guys trying to make it. What should they be doing once they get injured, or you know what I mean, major, minor? What's a couple of things they could take away and
Figure out what you can and can't do. You know, if your lower limb's fucking injured, like we said, do something for your upper body. Ask some questions. You know, there's always things that you can do. And another point from me would be try to focus on something. You know, if you are injured in your game and you're not playing the sport, try to focus on something that's going to better you outside of footy. All right, there's like you said, take a step back. There's a big world out there, and try to find out where your mark can be laying outside of the game.
beauty. Done and dusted, bro. Another one
man.
in the fucking
In the bag. Let's go.
latest. Cheers. That's good. I didn't even have